night. Mavs lost 3 straight and a half game back of the Thunder for the 10 seed. Midway through the third, Mavs down 2. Luka Doncic brings it up and drills the pull-up 3. Doncic would have 29 points and 10 rebounds in this game, which was tied at 92 after 3 quarters. About 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Mavs up 1. Tim Hardaway Jr. finds Kyrie Irving for the deep 3. Mavs up 4. Under 4 minutes left, they're up 2 now. Irving goes down the floor and buries the 3 with the whole Kings team around him. Mavs up 5. About 2 minutes left, Dallas up by 3. Josh Green finds Irving in the corner. He hits the high arcing shot. He gets it to fall. Kyrie had 19 points in the fourth quarter, 31 points, 8 assists for the game. The Mavs win it 123-119. Before the game, Mark Cuban was asked if he gets a sense that Luka Doncic remains optimistic about the Mavs' long-term future in spite of how poorly it's gone this year. Cuban said, look, players don't talk like that, just like, hey, I'm here for the next 17 years. He'd like to be here the whole time, but we've got to earn that. And I found that interesting as we bring the Tims back in to talk some Mavericks. It's Tim time. Yes, it is Tim time. Tim time extended throughout the morning. Tim Bontemps, he says they have to earn that, meaning they have to convince Luka that Dallas is where he wants to be long term. And obviously this season hasn't gone the way they all hoped it would. So how do they do that?
That's a great question, Dan, and I'm not sure how they do it, frankly. They put themselves in a really, really difficult spot. And let's start with the Kyrie Irving trade. You know, obviously, going and trade for Kyrie Irving a couple months ago, you look at that, hey, bring a star to play with Luka. First of all, Kyrie could leave in a couple of months. Second of all, you look at the way they've built their team around those guys now, the Mavs can't guard anybody, in part because their best perimeter defender had to be shipped to Brooklyn to make the Kyrie trade happen. And you look at where this team is at going forward. They're limited in draft assets if they keep Kyrie. They don't have a lot of young talent on the team. They really only have a couple young players that are promising guys going forward. And they don't have a lot of salary flexibility, even if they do keep him. And if they don't, then they have a giant star-sized hole on their team with Luka a couple years away from free agency. So it's going to be a long, hard road for Dallas to do enough to keep Luka Doncic happy in Dallas. And frankly, I think it's going to be very difficult to do it.
I remember when the Kyrie trade was made, I was thinking, what could possibly go wrong? Everything should be really smooth with this guy. Legs, did Dallas and Luka have like a path back that you can see to being a West? They were in the Western Finals last year, right? Like, can they get back to that anytime soon?
It's going to be difficult now. I think they're going to have to justify this Kyrie trade by going all in on trying to re-sign him. And if you end up with that, you can see what it looks like now. It hasn't been a super large sample size, but I don't think it's a great fit for the two of them. And honestly, it's going to be tough for any ball-dominant scorer type player, excuse me, to fit with Luka Doncic because of the way he plays. So this is obviously a pairing that hasn't worked out the way they wanted. They're gotten worse defensively with the guys that they gave up. And here's the big challenge, and I think this is where it starts if you're the Mavericks. You've got to get Luka Doncic to commit to playing harder defensively, to being a guy that wants to set the tone and take on the challenge on that end of the floor. Not jog back 8 to 10 possessions a game after he misses a layup or he doesn't get a call and puts his team in tough spots on that end of the floor. I think right now he's putting up gaudy numbers and great numbers. He's one of the elite talents in this league. But does that translate to winning if he doesn't commit to being that leader with his intensity, with getting, fully committed to being in shape, to playing hard as he can on every possession and setting the tone? I think that's where it starts to be seen. But those are the tough conversations I think Jason Kidd and the organization need to have with him. You can put role players around him and see what you could accomplish that you did a year ago. But I think it starts with him if you want to get over the top. That's where this organization needs to look first. The pairing alongside of him for elite level scorers, that is not going to be an easy fit going forward. So I'm a little bit skeptical right now about where the Mavericks are in the landscape of the West.
Well, by the way, the fit that was pretty good? Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson, his buddy who was there with him last year when they got to the conference finals, when they had Dorian Finney-Smith, a guy he loves playing with, a guy a couple days ago. He talked about how much Dallas has missed him this year. Not a big coincidence that in the wake of that, Mark Cuban has this impromptu meeting with the media yesterday before the game to explain all the reasons why they couldn't have kept Jalen Brunson and why they had to trade for Kyrie Irving and why they had to do all these things. If you look down the road and Luka Doncic potentially leaves Dallas in a few years, the moment that all started, was when they let Jalen Brunson leave. They had multiple chances to keep him last year. They were unable to do so for a variety of reasons, whatever Mark Cuban wants to say. Dallas had the opportunity to keep him. They passed on it. Jalen Brunson comes to New York. The Knicks are a transformed team by his arrival, and Dallas is a transformed team in the opposite direction by his departure.
Lots of work to do, but you mentioned it's a ways off his potential departure from Dallas because of the contract. When we get to that point, was it 2-3 years from now? Is he going to still be there?
I mean, look, in 3 years, he's got 3 years left after this on his contract. That is a lifetime in NBA terms, so we'll see where things look from there. But if you look at it right now and you try to see a path for Dallas to get back to the conference finals between now and then, I don't see what it's going to be. As Mark Cuban said, they have to earn having him there. It's going to be hard for him to get back to that level again.
We'll see what goes on in Dallas. Meantime, how about a little eye candy from the Masters? It's a 2-for-1.
Do it on This Just In the afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern, ESPN, which is the show I host, where the way the tiers work, it's pyramid style. So only one can be in tier 1.
Yes.
2 must be in tier 2, and 3 must be in tier 3. Ready? We're going to go in reverse order.
I'm familiar. I'm glad you're breaking it down for the audience and
Nice.
people watching at home. Yeah.
Tier 3. The Warriors,
Okay.
the Clippers, and the Grizzlies.
Interesting that you have the Golden State Warriors there, though. They just won the chip last year. They dealt with significant injuries. We understand that the core of that team is getting a little bit older. There were some chemistry issues with what happened in the preseason with Draymond Green stealing on Jordan Poole. So, I mean, I don't necessarily see it as them having a ton of pressure on them because they just won the chip last year, and you can understand why an aging roster might not be able to go on back-to-back deep playoff runs.
LeBron and KD are both in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how much longer Draymond's going to be there.
Sure.
And the reinvention of the modern game, or what I would call the postmodern game, right? The modern era starts with the absorption of the ABA teams and the adoption of the three-point shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
That ushers in the modern era.
Yeah.
And then the postmodern era, to me, is when the three-point shot went bananas, when they figured out this is the most efficient way to play the game. And who really reinvented basketball? Steph and Dre. Because you said Steph's the most important because he shoots from unlimited range, and he's a mobile artillery unit with the handles and everything.
Crazy.
Creating crazy space for everyone. But his pick-and-roll partner, the guy who allows him to not have to be a point guard all the time, he can play off ball, and the guy who allowed them to play 5 out, because with Steph creating all that space, now a guy like Dre could shoot it at one point just well enough. They could play 5 out, small ball, the death lineup. That's Dre. And then when you add Klay Thompson as the spot-up shooter, and now you got the 2 best shooters ever in that whole thing might be changing after this year. We don't know if Draymond's going to be there, man. This might be like the last dance.
Yeah, but here's the thing. With the evolution of the game, you're starting to see more and more guys that are front court players have that ability to not only get the rebound, but get you across the timeline and get you into your half-court sets. And so I'm not saying that Draymond is easily replaceable because he's an all-time great defender. But what I will say is that Draymond, out of the core pieces that have been a part of this dynastic run from Golden State, is the guy that you could probably find a successor to.
Can I give you one more?
What's up?
I think he's so important. I have like sort of a half-baked theory, but I'm baking it.
What you got?
When you have your second best player as the dominant personality, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
He's too close in quality to the best player.
Sure.
So when LeBron showed up in Miami, but it was still Dwayne Wade's team, they didn't chip up. Then Dwayne Wade said, look, this is your team now. In the offseason, then they chipped up. With Kyrie and KD, doesn't work because Kyrie has the dominant personality, but KD's just the best player, right? When I do think it can work is when that guy, the leader guy, is the third best player. He's not close enough to the best player to be an issue, right? So Chris Paul on Phoenix, he's the third best player on the team, and it's his team. That's okay. That can work. Draymond Green on the Warriors. It's Steph's team, but who's the vocal leader? Draymond, right? Go replace all that. It's a lot to replace. It is a lot.
The leadership intangibles would be hard to replace, but here's the thing. The culture is set by Steph, not Dre. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. The only element that you would be trying to find is that tenacity, that toughness, that doggedness that
I
you
agree.
need.
And also to do everything defensively. Okay, so Warriors, Clippers, Grizzlies, tier 3. Here's tier 2.
Clippers, here's the thing. Without breezing past the other 2 teams in tier 3, Clippers got a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
Think about what Steve Ballmer is paying for that team, not only with salary but luxury tax.
What they gave up for Paul George?
Think about all of the games that those two have missed since they got to L.A. Damn it, if you can't do it this year, when is it going to happen?
The best coach in the game.
The West is wide open. It's wide open.
And the Grizzlies, because who knows how long they can keep that thing together.
They got it.
Okay, so
the Clippers got
tier 2. The Lakers and the Nuggets. Tier 2.
I'm going to say the Lakers have
most pressure on the Western Conference.
I'm going to say the Lakers have more pressure than the Nuggets because the window is smaller for the two superstars on the Lakers.
But the Nuggets, wait a minute. The Nuggets, especially Jokic, consecutive MVPs. It looked like he was going to win his third one. Doesn't look like it anymore.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray balling out in the playoffs. We don't know about Porter Jr.'s health, by the way. Any year,
that's fair.
So like this, they're healthy for the first time when they're all peaking. This might be as good as it gets.
Sure, but you're talking about Jamal Murray and Jokic being, around 27 years old?